your biggest goal, as we've talked in the past, is making sure that your clients are well taken care of and that they know what they're signing up for, they know what they're buying into or purchasing, and that you're taking care of that process behind the scenes to make sure that they're not buying something with no utility or, things along those lines. So I think the role that you're going to play is going to be a massive role in introducing consumers to this technology, because it's going to take some getting used to really trust these systems that are in place. And you're really going to have to bridge, the way the system works now with how it might function in the future. And that's going to take people with the know-how in the current system and with some type of know-how in the future system, and kind of building that bridge with other service providers in the industry. And that's something I've really admired about the process that you've taken, even in terms of the wallet to wallet transactions that you've conducted in the past. I know a lot of people who I've talked to or different product offerings, whether they're web-based or whatever, maybe have cut some more corners than you did. So maybe you could walk us through, because I know you've done some Bitcoin residential sale transactions. Maybe you could walk us through how you conducted those.
Yeah. And just as a as a disclosure, so I keep myself out of trouble. Some of what we did, we took a lot of the elements of the traditional practice and tried to make sure that they were still the baseline element for introducing some of this new technology application on top of it. Mainly because we wanted to protect all the parties, knowing that we're still in that innovation stage. And I had actually, when we first started working in the blockchain space a couple of years ago, I was talking to a tech guy, and it was funny because for some reason I couldn't get my brain unwrapped around, well, we just have to develop a tech tool. And he kept saying, no. You need to develop a value use case, and then we need to see how tech will enhance that. And I'm like,
Right.
I kept trying to jump and so I think that has been really a helpful roadmap for us, because we're actually, and some of the things you just touched on regarding, the tokenization, a lot of it will probably start out being very manual and being very, very basic and laborious. But the goal is then you can bring in these elements of technology, and you can start to use, whether it be AI or whether it be, other computational tools in there. There's already a lot of stuff that's out there. You just have to understand how you want to deploy it and where it makes the most sense. So back to your question on the wallet to wallet. I always tell people a couple of things. One, it's not for everybody. It's probably for a very few people even nowadays. And we were very open and honest about that. So when we first introduced what we were way back when calling it encrypted estates, and it was really this sort of escrow based around digital currency, also known as cryptocurrency. And we tend to lean into the term digital currency, mainly just because crypto brings out sort of it can get a lot of negative connotations. And, our goal is we're really looking at this using the technology, blockchain, payment rail systems, which in this case, the most popular one is the Bitcoin Lightning Network. But there's many other, payment rail systems built upon blockchain that are out there and running today. So we're going to talk about Bitcoin, though, because it's the most widely known and currently widely used. It'll be interesting to see, and I know the Bitcoin maximalists would not like me to say this, but, there could be a day and age where it's not. And there's another type of digital currency that essentially is, the leading product on top of these payment rails. But what we do, essentially, everything is very, Tommy, very buttoned up like a normal transaction. Buyer, seller agree on a price. They're going to agree on that price in US dollars. We have to do that for numerous reasons, but the biggest reason is the tax man. That's what they care about. And then everything title-wise still runs along the title spectrum. Anybody that tells you, is my opinion, anybody that tells you that you don't need to bring title into it, that you can just do a deed for deed or something like that, that's a buyer beware moment, and to be one that I would be very skeptical of. And I've heard of those where people are literally trading deeds directly between parties, and they're trading, currencies between parties, and they're trading properties. The challenge there is you're skipping a lot of steps, and I think you're introducing potentially a lot of uncertainties into the ownership piece of it moving forward. So we do all the normal title elements. We check, verify ownership with the clerk's office. We check with the taxing authorities to make sure the tax has been paid. We check with land records to make sure that there's no other encumbrances on the property. And so we button all that up, and we get a title product together. Where the Bitcoin comes in is at the day of closing, where the buyer and seller have agreed. I'm the seller. I'm willing to take X remuneration in the form of Bitcoin in return of my US dollar price of whatever it is. And I'm the buyer, and I'm going to be prepared to have the Bitcoin. The one thing I will say is the title company, one, we have a ton of disclosures. There's some KYC, AML elements that the buyer has to go through. Both of them have to have wallets. Both of them have to sign disclosures saying market volatility. They're going to close at a certain time. And when they do that, they're going to lock in the conversion. There's no arbitrage. If they want to do any of that, if you're a seller or you're a buyer and you're worried about currency risk, just as like if you're going to get paid in euros or even US dollars has currency risk embedded in it, depending on what you're going to do with your money in the future. But that's all on you. That's we actually don't touch the cryptocurrency, the digital currency. So we're not a market maker. That has nothing to do with us. So you would sit down at the closing, all vendor payouts, like your commission, Tommy, whatever would be paid in US dollars. That money flows in from the buyer in US dollars, not Bitcoin, because we can't accept US dollars. Now, what we can do is we can work with a third party that will allow the buyer to send Bitcoin to them, and then they will send us the US dollar. So it's a real-time conversion. There's a group called Foreign Pay or BitPay. But we tell the buyers, hey, you're in charge of investigating that. We have relationships, but we don't give endorsements because we just have to be careful. If something were to go off the rails with that vendor, we don't want to be, ultimately we're the, for all intents and purposes, we're the fiduciary. So we have to be very mindful of that. But after the payouts are made to the vendors, if there's a payoff involved, all that would run through our escrow company. We would handle all those payments vis-a-vis US dollars. And then whatever's left over, let's just use round numbers. Let's just say there's $100,000 left to be paid to the seller from the buyer at the time of closing. And we only do this in person because the way we do it, it's a true wall-to-wall, and it's a true QR code exchange. They would pull up their QR code, programmatically put in the amount of US dollars due, which would do a conversion. They'd agree upon the exchange, and they would do what we call a wallet-to-wallet swap. We would sit there at the table, verify the money had been transferred, sign another disclosure saying when I leave this table, I'm not coming back on Millennial Title. I'm not coming back on the buyer. As the seller, I'm done. I've got my cryptocurrency, my digital currency, whatever you want to call it, Bitcoin, and it's mine. Buyer says market shoots up, market shoots down. It's out of my hands. I've paid for it. I'm good. And then we can issue a title policy. That's the beauty of it. So you've got insurable title. Like I said, there's a lot of steps to it that at the very end, and they're mainly, honestly, disclosure steps. It's all about buyer beware, buyer beware, buyer beware, buyer beware. But it's doable.